Good day, everyone. My name is Rafael Reyes, and today we're going to talk about the importance of the United Nations. So, we all know that the United Nations is the international organization where countries come together to discuss about disputes, talk about the importance of cooperation when it comes to international peace and regulations. So, more than 80 years ago, the world witnessed a very, very horrible tragedy, which is World War II. And before, before the United Nations, there was the League of Nations. And it's sad to say that the organization at that time did not work out because the world broke out into another world war, because the purpose of at that time was when the first world war ended, the League of Nations was created in order to prevent a second world war, but that did not uh, came into success, that because World War II broke out and a catastrophe really happened before. But then after World War II, the United Nations was established because it is to ensure the international peace and security for all. So we're going to answer two questions today. First is to answer the question of whether the time will come if it is possible to give freedom and independence for all the members of the United Nations. And second is to whether or not the United Nations change the world. So for before that, first we will talk about the importance or like the purpose of the United Nations. So the work of the United Nations has impacted people all around the world on issues related peace and security internationally. The development of human rights, from also to disarmament and also to efforts to combat terrorism and extremism. From then on, the United Nations has done to prevent conflicts in order to ensure the safety and peace of the world. And that is done through peacekeeping and peace building. There is also disease prevention and to the promotion of gender equality, universal education, and also from refugee resettlement to humanitarian assistance, and also from transnational crime. So, and because of that, the purpose of the United Nations has always been the stability of the whole world. It is also there that it it binds countries, its member states together in order to discuss the key issues about the world. It can talk about things like climate change or war, or like how instead going to war, they can stop it. So it is no right to go to war because war is a thing of the past. We all learned our lessons from World War II, and that is why the United Nations was created, also to prevent another catastrophe like that before. And it is also issuing that instead of going through violence, we will solve our issues and problems in a more formal and diplomatic way, as all should be all civil when it comes to matters that kind of circumstances. Further ado, we will also mention a key person in this topic of United Nations, which is former President Harry S. Truman, the 33rd President of the United States of America. So, before, way back in the historic moment, in the day of August 8, 1945, President Harry S. Truman signed the United Nations Charter, thus resulting to the United States becoming the first nation to complete the ratification process and join the newly established international organization, which is the UN at the time. Hopes were high at the time that the United Nations would serve as an arbiter of international disputes. We will answer our question now, the two questions. So first is how when President Harry S. Truman said that the United Nations is designed to make possible lasting freedom and independence for its members. The question is, I will reflect it on the what I said before. So the question is, do you think this day will come? Or like, do you think this will come one day where it is possible for lasting and freedom and independence for the members of the United Nations? So I say that yes, it is quite possible because the United Nations serve as a catalyst for its members, uh, member states that have joined the organization to talk about key issues and disputes. Because the thing is that when problems globally arises, it is expected to not resort into violence or war. It is expected to resolve those kind of problems and issues through diplomatic means. You talk it out because war is not very good. It is no one wins in the end and everyone is killing themselves for the sake of their own achievements, which is kind of sad. That is why the United Nations was established to prevent those kind of conflicts. Although I'm not saying that the organization is perfect in some of way, because as you can see nowadays that there are still conflicts happening. There are also armed conflicts happening nowadays. So it is not in a way perfect. The United Nations never like, although it said that it is to ensure international peace and security, but we must also understand that the reality behind it is that it is not meant to be perfect, but it is striving to actually achieve its goals because that's the purpose of it. That's why it was created in the first place. But as human as we are all in this world, there are things that might seem impossible because there are times where interests take the better of us. But to to answer again the question if it's possible to have long lasting freedom and independence for all, I say yes, it is quite possible because nowadays like democracy is really the trend. Freedom, independence for all, everyone has their rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights there was created to ensure the rights of every single person in this world. So that is why it will come one day. I truly believe of that. It will truly come one day where people or like the member states of the United Nations will have long lasting freedom and independence. So for our next question, how has the United Nations changed the world? Well, we can see, like I said in the first question, the United Nations is not perfect. Although it already said its commitments to the world, saying that it will ensure international peace and security. but it never promised a guarantee, because nowadays, as you can see all over the world, the news, there are wars happening, diseases, conflicts. As you can see in the latest conflict between Russia and Ukraine, yes, the United Nations, but, but, the United Nations has indeed changed the world, because unlike its previous version, the League of Nations, which failed because at that time no one really, the members at that time never really took seriously of the organization. But then when World War II broke out, and after it ended, the world finally understood the horrors of war, and thus many countries came into United Nations, because they understand that, hey, this is not a very good way to settle problems and issues, wars or something like that. It is not very good. So that is why member states or countries, some countries join the United Nations, because they are in the side of fixing problems through diplomatic means and formal talks. Because it is very sad when everything just resorts to war just because of some simple, or like some disagreements or issues. So, well, I'm sorry. So, if the question now, again, if the United Nations has changed the world, yes, it has. It has changed the world, because there are issues nowadays that are being done through diplomatic means. So you can maybe in the curtains behind of it, there are already issues, many conflicts and issues that are already being resolved through the means of diplomatic efforts and peace talks. So that is a very good point done, or like the efforts done by the United Nations, because it is what it is. And the United Nations has also done peacekeepings and such, peacekeepings in ensuring territorial peace, border peace, and attainment of not resorting into conflicts. And there is also humanitarian aid done by the United Nations all these years. So there are many things that you can think of, or like you can see even, that the United Nations has done for the world. So even though it is not perfect, but at the same time, it is not a failure. Unlike the League of Nations before, it is not a failure. It has been standing in for many years, for decades. It has been standing still and firm. And many countries do take it seriously when it comes to that, because they know that it is important to to resolve things in a more formal way. So that's why I think that the United Nations has really changed the world. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for listening.